Good evening, everyone. Welcome into your box seat, brought to you in association with Woodland Stard. We've got a whole heap of things to get through in this show. Michael Guerin's back, off the back of a pretty fun time last week. Evening to you.
Hey Gregor, big hi to everybody. Sorry I wasn't here for the sales review show last week. We're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. Also about this massive carnival in Sydney, which has a little bit of controversy about it, Greg, and lots of New Zealand winning chances. And it's Derby week at Alexandra Park. It doesn't have quite the same ring as Cup week, but some pretty intriguing racing coming up there with, I think, a whole bunch of new 2-year-olds coming in, Greg. So it's an exciting time. It's almost a case of like the Gallops at the moment. Where to look? There's so much going on.
Yeah, there certainly is, Michael. But let's just go back to last Thursday and have a bo peep at this. Yes, here was Michael Guerin.
Oh, my apologies for that. I did not know
alongside
this
the
was
Top Gun
being
himself,
sent
Tom Cruise.
through.
Tell me about the fighter experience and just how cool it was.
Look, I've always wanted to. I love speed, obviously, and I've always wanted to go in a fighter jet. And obviously I can't afford to, and it's one of those things. But the family got together and bought me this for my birthday recently. And what you do, this is us, me with JC, who was my pilot. So that's me in the back of a Czechoslovakia-made fighter. And that's us upside down. And you're copping around about here, the funny facial expressions come down because you're copping about 4.2 Gs. So your body's about 4 times heavier than it usually is. So what they do is they take you up, and it's all Top Gunnish, as you can see. You've got the gear and basically you get up there and they test out how much you can cop it all. And if you can cop it, they start doing the loop. So with the loop, you're basically going straight up in the air, and then when you get to the top of the loop, you're weightless. And then when you come down the other side, it's pretty amazing, Greg. Like, you know how when you drive a horse, it's really hard to explain to people how cool it feels until you've done it? It was very similar to that. So, look, I'm sure there's people out there who have a partner or someone they're close to for work, and you think, well, what am I going to buy this person for their 50th or 60th or 40th, whatever. It's one of those things which, if you like that sort of thing, it's a remarkable experience, and for days or weeks afterwards, you're kind of beaming. But
well, you can leave me out of it, as you know.
It flies
anything like that. Nah,
it was really cool to do, and as I said, it's not cheap, but look, it's not a paid advertisement. But if anybody's interested, it's fighterjets.nz, and one of those things, if there's someone special in your life, you think, what would I'm going to buy this person? For example, for me, it was for 50th birthday, and I absolutely loved it. But yeah, it's pretty trippy when you're hanging upside down and then you're copping a G-force. Really bizarre. I didn't understand how G-forces worked. I went to give the thumbs up, and it was like lifting 50 kilo weights. You're just like trying to get your hands up, and you're pinned back to the seat. So yeah, awfully good fun. But my apologies, I couldn't be here for the show. I thought family sometimes, Gregory, occasionally, have to come first.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, sales last week, huge. Obviously, New Zealand Bloodstock, second year, uplift in, well, our top lots for a start, 9 at 200,000. What did you make of that?
I think it's where the sales market is. Well, it's where the sales market's going. People want mainly the same things, which last week were the Bettor's Delights, some of the Captain Treacherouses, and the Love Yous, and the Trotting Ranks, or a Muscle Hill occasionally. So people want what they want, and unlike the Gallops, where there's 3,000 horses going through Sydney, Melbourne, and Karaka, there's a lot less horses here. And what you're finding is people are honing in on the same 10 to 20, and that has a bit of a tail at the back end of the market. But that top end of the market, one of the things that happens when someone buys a horse for $200,000 is, if you and I are going to go buy one for 40, you look at each other and go, we might need to pay 60 for that now.
Yeah.
So it definitely changes people's attitude. Whereas if the top of the market's 100, it's really easy for people to get stuck in the mire at the 20 and 30. I think there were some wonderful horses there. Bettor's Delight is obviously the absolute king. Captain Treacherous, we're hoping those results come through on the track, I think, Greg, so then he can take over some of that leeway, because Bettor's won't live forever. I think NZBS has done a really good job. I think they've revitalised the industry. So have some of the vendors. They're doing a better job. I think there's lots of positivity out of it, Greg. You were there for more of it than me. What was your overall feeling when you left on Wednesday afternoon?
Yeah, fantastic. I suppose the one thing that underpins that is we need some clarity going forward over the next couple of years that now stakes aren't going to double, but if the yearling sales average 46 up north and 43 in Christchurch, that can't be sustained if we remain where we are stake level wise. So,
Well, it also
and
depends.
we're 18, 2 years down the track till we find that out.
Well, it also depends why you're buying horses. Like if you talked about
Well,
stakes...
some people get a boat, some people
Well, exactly.
fly,
And also
fly a
some
jet.
people are buying them to sell.
Yeah.
Exactly. Some people are buying them to sell. Some people are buying them because they're syndicating them, in which case it doesn't really matter how many times you divide them up, like Tiakau. You can pay $500,000 for a
Stonewall
horse.
Stud's the best
It's
example.
exactly Stonewall Stud on the harness.
Yep.
If you divide it between 50 people,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter so much.
Some new blood too in the game, which especially in Christchurch.
I agree, and that's really important. I still think that clearance rate, there was a few people like Ken Brecken who I spoke to this morning who took a lot more horses home than he wanted to. And he said, maybe I didn't go to a stallion who was a sales commercial yet. But he's managed to get rid of those horses. He's done some 50-50 deals with some young trainers. He's syndicated some of them. So there are homes for these horses. I advocated it a long time ago on the show. If you take a horse home from the sales, give it to a young trainer, give them a chance on a 50-50 deal. I think that still works. There's still two things about the sales which we need to clean up as an industry, and you don't want to hear this, and NZBS don't want to hear it because it's not their problem, and Harness Racing New Zealand doesn't want to hear it. But here it is. It's a fact. Black type in this country is nonsense. Absolute nonsense junk. Get the catalogue, throw it away. Black type is just ridiculous. Yesterday at Menangle, they had 10 or 11 races, every single race, including the 2,300 metre trot for 3-year-old trotters, was won on a 159.9 mile rate. So every horse who ever races at Menangle is a black type horse. Well, that's nonsense.
Yeah, it's rubbish.
So we've got to get to this attitude, and the breeders aren't going to like it, where 155 is a good horse's time.
Yep.
For a pacer, and 158 for a trotter, maybe 157.5. But us pretending as an industry that black type is 2 minutes anymore is just nonsense. And if anybody who's unwilling to believe that doesn't want to move with the times, because the times have moved without you. The other one is naming the horses. It's got to stop. It's just got to stop. I spoke to a bloke last week, Dean Shannon, one of the biggest purchasers of horses. He's now bought a horse, the same horse 9 years apart. So 2 different horses, but the same name. Because we named them, and then he said, I just go change them. And when I buy a horse's name, I change them.
Yeah.
Why do we keep doing it? There's
Well,
no
one
reason
of
why
the
we
big
do it.
reasons is you can change them, it's free.
Agree.
So
and
nobody-
Harness Racing New Zealand's done their bit there.
Yeah.
But why the breeders are determined to name horses when no one else in the world does it, doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Okay, that's the sales, and we've given them a fair airing in the last couple of weeks. News through about Dexter winning the US Driver of the Year. We actually heard that back in December, though, but the award's been presented even though he wasn't there. And, of course, Sha-Tin, Horse of the Year, and she thoroughly deserved that, Michael. Last year she ran second, 83 votes to 42. This is a great recognition of this mare, isn't it?
She's won nearly $1 million last year, 982,000 US. She paced the fastest ever mile by a mare in the world. She's the first pacing mare, the 5th female to win US Horse of the Year, bred by Grant Crabb.
Yep.
I spoke to him during the week. Congratulations to you, Grant, by Tintin in America. So you never know where these horses are going to come from. She's done a remarkable job, and that on top of the Lazarus form of a couple of years ago really helps the export breed, which maybe we don't want to help, but it's still going to help someone out there. The Dexter things are slightly confused, by the way. Dexter did win US Harness Racing Riders Driver of the Year. Now it's a bit like at the Galloping Awards here, we have Jockey of the Year voted on by people like you and me, and that was Opie Bosson last year. It's not a definitive title. Just so there's a few people confused about this. That was announced in December. So that wasn't announced this week at the Dan Patch Awards. It was a chance for Dexter to go pick up his award, which he didn't do. So it's a Racing Writers Award. It was covered in New Zealand. It was actually announced live on trackside on Inter-Dominion Grand final night. So it was announced live. So even though it was presented at the Dan Patch Awards, it wasn't actually awarded this week. It was awarded 2 months ago.
It was. All right.
Hey,
it's still a great achievement.
It's a wonderful achievement, but everybody knows how good Dexter is. Dexter is world class. He's just proving what we knew.
Yep, let's go to Alexandra Park, of course, this Friday night. Group 1 racing there, Northern Oaks. Here's the field, $1.12, Amazing Dream. She's been in incredible form. Got a $100,000 guaranteed pick 6 this night, of which nearly half of it is carried forward, Michael. So a lot of people will be anchoring her.
Everybody.
Yep.
I mean, I look at this race and it's a wonderful race and I'm glad we're having it, but what are we supposed to possibly say? She's better than these fillies. If Need You Now leads, maybe she's a threat to this horse because she's beaten her before doing that, or sitting in the trail. But Greg, I think she'll lead. I think she'll win.
Yeah, no doubt. And on this performance, this is winning the Sale Series race over Plutonium Lady. Then it's very hard to make a case for anything else. The 33rd running of the Northern Oaks.
What runs second?
Well, I'm about to show you a video of Need You Now, running second, of course, in the Waikato Guineas. This is a very good performance from Bad to the Bone. Got to the outside and stormed home. She'd copped a lot of pressure in front and battled on solidly. She's been cruel by the draw, particularly to draw as wide out as she has against Amazing Dream.
She was absolutely super here. And if she led, yes, a chance. I'm actually interested to see what they do from that barrier draw. Do they just roll the dice and roll forward? Because if you don't, and you let Amazing Dream roll to the lead,
it's race over.
It's race over.
Yep.
So I'm not sure what they'll do. She's flying. I would like to have seen her drawn inside Amazing Dream. It's really easy for us to be flippant about Amazing Dream because she should just turn up and win, but she's a hell of a filly and they still need to be loved and looked after and planned, and all that stuff needs to happen the same as it does for every other horse. But at $1.12, it's pretty hard for us to hype the race up.
Yeah, Bad to the Bone. Looking forward to seeing him in the Derby next week because he was exceptional there.
He was really good.
He's $11 if you want to back him in the Derby.
He beat two fillies,
yes,
but he
did.
came from last to beat them.
And that's
on a
not
night
easy.
where oddly they were coming from last at Cambridge, but he's a very good horse, and I think it's a Derby where there's probably more chances than there usually are, Greg.
Founders Cup's the next race we want to have a look at, and this one's been shifted around a little bit, Michael. I think originally it was back in the spring, and then it was in December, and now we find it as part of the March Carnival, and Star Galleria gets a chance to go back-to-back. He actually won this race 2 years ago.
The start here is going to be interesting because he has such good gate speed, and if they use it and he leads like they did last time he won, which is here, beating Bella Montana, that's Star Galleria in front, Bella Montana pulling to 3 wide. If he leads, you think he would probably win, but we've seen that the Steve Telfer team aren't just interested in giving people easy leads. We saw that in the Flying Mile at Cambridge. I actually preferred Triple Eight in this race. I think Triple Eight's coming out of a no-luck sitting Parked Hunter Cup. Before that, he was really good during the Inter-Dominions and in the Auckland Cup. There's every reason to think he's as good as Star Galleria. So look, for me, I don't have any particularly great thoughts yet. We are all on track Friday night. Greg, I'll go Triple Eight. Who are you with?
Yeah, probably Star Galleria, but I'm betwixt and between. Either one of those two I thought would be winning the race, but I'll go Star Galleria just to go head-to-head with you. Of course, this is the race at Holmes DG, won 4 times.
Back when it was in the spring.
That's right, Spring Cup of time. Let's have a look at the Northern Trotting Stakes now, and Pretty Majestic. We get a chance to have a look at that performance last Friday night at Cambridge because that was simply stunning.
She's absolutely flying. This is a real rarity. Australian trotters coming to New Zealand to live. We've seen plenty over there. That's her last, and she was last because she didn't step away that quickly, and Fergie just waited, and she absolutely flies home in the Robert Dunn colours. Okay, admittedly a couple here might have underperformed. I spoke to Tony Hurley about Tickle Me Pinky. She has some back issues and she'll be out for a couple of weeks, but gee, that was good.
Yeah.
That was really good.
I think on that performance, it's hard to make a case that she'll get beaten on Friday night. She's now had half a dozen runs here for Yabby Dam Farms for Robert Dunn and missed out first up, since then never further back than second.
It's an incredible change of situation. I can't remember many Australian trotters coming across here. There's one racing this week called Zeebeck, who won the New South Wales Trotting Derby last year. It's coming across too, with the young trainer having moved here. But look, funny enough, when you look at this shot here, the battle between the 8 and the 10 is more important than you might think. They've got a really good chance of winning Trotting Mare of the Year, and that's valuable. That goes in the book. That's here forever. So if Pretty Majestic wins this week, because I doubt either of those horses can win a major open class race. So this race and last week, those things count towards Trotting Mare of the Year, because when it gets voted on, you just see all this black type and go, that's good as gold. So I think she's the one to beat, and I do think if she wins this week, it's going to be really hard to beat her for Trotting Mare of the Year, unless Tickle Me Pink, who will come back, can come out and win a major race, Greg. But when you're winning those major races, Anzac Cup and the Road Cup, it's a totally different class of horse.
It is. Northern Derby Prelude is part of the Friday night action at the Park too. Here's the field for it, just a field of 7. And chances here, Michael, well, out wide, Copy That and One Change will dominate the market and probably the finish.
I think Copy That might be the better horse, but One Change has the better record. So it's just a matter of what you make of them. Copy That had been good at the workouts. Actually returned last start around 3rd.
This is him outside the leader in the Butcher colours. There's Triple Eight, the Star Galleria. There's a whole lot of horses in here we know well, and he did this very nicely.
Look, there's no doubting his ability. I think this week might come down to who lands where and who's more motivated with the Derby next week. The lead-up races to the Derby in this country have been incredibly tricky over a long period of time. Good horses like Chase Auckland and Ultimate Sniper have been beaten in these races and gone on to win the Derby. So I think a lot's going to depend on motivation and where they end up, and we'll be on track along with the big fish, and we'll try and find out from everybody what they're thinking, particularly around One Change, because One Change, here he is at the trials last week. This is Rangiora, I think. And if he's willing to go back at the start and Copy That goes forward, well, you don't want to be on him. But if Copy That goes back and he goes forward, you want to be on him, Greg. So we'll try and work out what's going to happen. Who are you with?
Yeah, probably Copy That, I think, this week. One Change has been very, very good at the trials, and that was him running second behind Minstrel, who I think is a pretty fair horse in the David and Catherine Butt barn. So I'm expecting him to be pretty forward. He's had 3 trials since that Sale Series final win, and I think he'll be really forward for this week's assignment. But yeah, I'm happy to be with Copy That. He's a smarty.
Funny thing is, often you look at this race and think, okay, Flying Even Better, All Stars would lead and potentially hand to One Change, and you feel comfortable with that. But Ray Green's got 3 in the race, and I think they'll be thinking, well, hold on, we're not going to be handing to you, lads, or lasses, as the case may be. I think Copy That probably has the advantage, and as I said, just be a little bit careful with this. We'll try and do a bit of homework and find out for you, because this race is the race that a lot of very good horses have been beaten.
North Island Breeders, let's have a look at the field for that. And Kendra's the one we're going to have a look at video-wise, winning at Ashburton last Saturday when it actually got pretty wet and they couldn't even use the mobile. But you got the likes of Pressed for Time, for Tom Baggery, Some Do's doing a really good job, and Dinah Brown, never quite know which way to go, was actually second behind Copy That in that trial we just saw, and of course Bella Montana was 4th. Let's have a look at Kendra, winning last Saturday. Gives us a chance to go back and have a look at her. This was the best version. She rolled to the top. Blair Orange often has driven her with a sit, didn't on this occasion. She ran away and hid.
Very, very good. And by the way, well done to the clerk of the course and the stewards at Ashburton. Once the mobile couldn't be used, the actual starts were pretty darn good, considering how messy they could have been. She's flying. I think Some Do's probably a comparable horse to her. And I think Ivana Flyby is the sneaky in this race if she can go forward. So I think a lot of it's going to depend where they land. She deserves to be favourite when the market's open, hopefully probably Thursday afternoon. But I think there's a few moving parts to this one. Ivana Flyby's probably got a pretty good each way chance.
Going to have a look at the Young Guns heats as well. One that's been flying, 2 from 2, Passion and Power. I don't know that I've seen a better performance from a 2-year-old filly in the early stage of the season than I saw the other night. 3-4 wide. Rolled to the top about the 600 metre mark and just kept on running. Passion and Power for the Robert Dunn team comes up with an even better draw. So you've missed all that in the first 3 quarters of the race, and then have a look at what she does here.
And beating some of the boys too. She'll run to the front and she'll win. Unless something goes wrong, she'll win. So just add it to your multi-bet. I think it's a great multi-bet night. There's a horse in there called Korea Lucia who goes pretty good.
It's trialled nicely.
It's trialled nicely and looks a proper horse too when you look at it. So Steve Telfer's got a couple coming out this week after a successful week at the sales, but this will be winning, I would suggest, along with Amazing Dream and a couple of others there.
So
too.
Maybe that $100,000 pick 6 is not looking as hard as what we were thinking.
I don't think so.
No.
I think the pick 6 is really worth attacking because it'll be fun for you, but I'm not sure where you're going to find the value. Often that's the keys to it, just find the leg we think is going to be rough, but she's a pretty darn good filly. And Robert and John Dunn are very good at getting these horses up and running and doing things right and getting them up on tight lines. So I think she'll win this, and I think she'll win the fillies final.
All right, the boys have another heat. It's the last race on the program, and you've got It's All About Faith returning to where he won the first heat of the Young Guns, and Platinum Stride, who won the most recent one.
It's All About Faith. We all know how good he is, but he had a gallop at the workouts recently, which doesn't feel that sexy if you want to back him. He actually had a bit of saddle rash underneath the saddle, which is what they call the part that holds the gear together. And that annoyed him, and that was the reason he galloped at Ashburton, then trialled better the next start. I think he's the best horse in this race, but Mr. Fantastic was really good last start. This is a horse a lot of people wanted to be on at the sales last year, and a lot of people stayed away from him because there was a sort of feeling he might touch a knee, which he did early doors for Stephen Reid when he broke him in. But really brave and strong to the line last start, sitting parked, which not many juveniles do at Alexandra Park. So I'll go with the All-Stars horse over Reedman's horse.
Platinum Stride we want to have a look at.
Platinum Stride was good last time.
He was, yeah, and he's built nicely towards this one as well. He's by Captain Treacherous out of Southwind Arden, so he's got plenty of breeding about him. And he did this nicely. He beat Challenger, who of course was the big purchase priced from last year's sales for the Rogerson team.
He won well, but it was only a 4-horse field, and basically he only had to beat the horse in front of him. It was basically a 2-horse race. So I think the favourite will have the wood on him if it behaves itself, and I think Mr. Fantastic might too, because I think he's a pretty nice horse. And yeah, I'm happy for Reedman to get him, because he took a chance last year when a lot of people went to the sales and sort of backed off that horse. He was a good-looking yearling, and Reedman, he gambled on it, and he gambled well.
Yeah, he did. Free-to-air coverage as well as part of Derby Week. Here's the information for you. So we've got the $100,000 guaranteed pick 6 there. Freeview Channel 200, same as where the sales were. Of course, we've got the box seat, big preview of Derby night next Wednesday, and the same scenario on the Friday night with a start time there of 5:40.
I don't mean to sound stupid, but what does Freeview UHF Channel 200 mean, and what's different from Trackside?
Well, basically, it's extended coverage on Freeview. Plus, it also allows
from that
people
one
who
meeting.
don't have Sky, to be able to tune in. So it effectively is free view. So there were a lot of complaints about when we went Sky only.
Yeah.
We're now providing it to people that. And you can't have a television without free view now.
That's okay. So Friday night,
people
people watching Trackside, it'll bounce between the Hounds and some other meetings, which is fine.
It's Trackside simulcast.
Okay, good as gold.
But it's basically free to air.
I just wanted to know what it was.
It's
cool.
free to air for people who haven't got Sky,
Now
all right, which is a good thing. Just before we leave Alexandra Park, Best Western, who won the Oaks last year, she's been retired by Jeremy Young and the connections there. Did a great job. She only won 3 races, but she won over 170,000.
Ran second in the Breeders' Crown.
Yeah.
Beat Princess Tiffany fair
and first Group 1 winner for Jeremy Young.
Yeah, and for Sailor Shabanathy.
Yeah, so it's a nice
Congratulations,
thing.
guys. She's got
she's done a
nice
great job.
future ahead of her.
She has. And Centenario, the other horse I wanted to mention, broke his shoulder, had to be euthanized, which wasn't very nice. Winner of 11 from 17, over 300,000. He won himself a APG final and just got beaten in a Breeders' Crown. He was a good horse.
Good horse, lovely big going horse. Part owned by Andrew Bensley, of course a good friend of all of us in New Zealand, because he does so much news gathering for us via Sky. So Andrew spoke to him last night. He was really sad by it. Trained by Emma Stewart. It's always tough when these good horses go down, but yeah, there's been a lot of good horses things go wrong with them recently, and you feel bad about that, but then one dies, you realise you're still lucky to have your horse.
Yep, absolutely there. You're correct, Michael. Right, short break for us here on your box seat. When we come back, we've talked about Menangle. It's pretty big this week. We're going to head there and preview what's ahead for you. Time for us to head across the Tasman to Menangle. Just before we do that though, Michael, Harness Racing lost a really good friend in Colin Webber last week, and of course he trained about 16 winners from only 100 odd starters, so he had a very good strike rate. I think his last winner might have been Ruby Ryan back in 2010.
Colin had the blue colours?
That's him, yep. yeah, and a hell of a nice fella, Tolly, as we knew him, and to Hayley and his wife Hilary and all their family, our thoughts are with you. He only had a short illness, and yeah, he was a real good fella, Tolly, and he used to love coming down to the Cup Carnival, so he'll be missed.
And respected trainer too, because when you saw those colours, you thought, okay, this thing will be ready.
Yeah.
So, yeah, sorry to hear that.
Yep, all right, let's move on to last week at Menangle. Of course, the Chariots of Fire, very much sought after. Lochinvar Art, you thought might have the advantage over Self Assured, but once they settled into the running line, beautiful drive Mark Purdon to get into the 1-1, but he couldn't quite catch Lochinvar Art.
These two great horses come away. It's Lochinvar Art a neck in front. Inch by inch, Self Assured tries to wear him down, but Lochinvar Art finally wins a big one at Menangle. Lochinvar Art beats Self Assured.
150.1, sitting parked with Self Assured on your backs, not normally a good recipe, Michael, but he's now 15 from 33, goes over $500,000. He's beaten this horse twice now, the Bonanza at Group 1 and now the Chariots.
At the 800, you could not have got enough money on Self Assured.
Not at $3.30 you couldn't.
Auckland Cup winner, sitting on the back of a horse who was going to break the leader. Beautiful drive by David Moran. David's a guy we don't know a lot about in New Zealand. He's a popular guy in Victoria. He's taken over the training of this horse. He was smart enough to not pressure the leader, and then you just saw him push the button at the top of the straight. And he left Mark flat-footed on Self Assured for about 10 strides and got away on him. Now, initially when I watched this race, I thought Self Assured was only okay there. But they've come home the last 425.4, Greg. Well, you just can't run much faster. So he's probably gone 25.2 Self Assured, or maybe even faster. I said to Mark Purdon, what do you make of this? He said, that other horse is pretty darn good. I said, well, how good are you talking? He said, he reminds me of Lenny the Shark. And Lazarus sat on the back of Lenny the Shark in a Miracle Mile, and again, couldn't catch him down the straight. Yeah. So David Moran's a guy you don't know much about. You're about to find out some more.
Wasn't sort of how we planned out the race to be, but yeah, he was good enough, and he was just really strong tonight, and he was really good and stuck his head out and got the job done.
Talk us through the run. We expected fireworks, and it was probably the opposite of that at the start.
Yeah, it was. That was always in the back of my mind a little bit, depending on what happened early. Was just going to be the lead time really in the first quarter. Obviously, it makes up for most races, and when they went steady early, the breeze was probably the best spot to be. So thank God it worked out.
Did you know Self Assured was on your back?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I was pretty surprised actually. He brushed across pretty quick and got there pretty cheap. So that was always a bit of a worry. So that was probably the other reason why we're happy to let him go pretty steady until the cage, and then really cut loose from there.
You've got an invitation to a Miracle Mile now. That's something on top of the winning prize money. So 2 weeks' time, we'll see you back here?
Yeah, we'll be here.
Yeah, he'll be there, all right. He automatic entry, as is the case for the next one we're going to have a look at before we get to the Newcastle Mile. You can't go any better than what Lochinvar Art just went. No, he's got to be a bona fide chance in the Miracle Mile. Well, draw dependent. But
he's fast and he's pretty quick off the gate, although it's going to be a very quick off the gate Miracle Mile. He's been beaten a few times. He was beaten in the Hunter Cup 2 starts ago, so it's not the second coming, but I think he's a very, very good sprint horse, like a lot of Australian horses can be. Whether he develops into a good enough stayer to win into Dominion further down the track, I don't know. But I like David Moran, had a good talk to him the other day. It's a breath of fresh air to have a new horse who, he actually told me a great story. Went to the Ready to Run sale. He bought this for $29,000. Went to the Ready to Run sale, and he said, I had a few beers and someone else was bidding up on the horse, and I thought, oh, no, screw you. I'm just going to keep going. He said, and then I bought it and thought to myself, God, how am I going to pay for this? And worked out well, and now he's got potentially the next best horse in Australia. You need something to be the villain in this All-Stars type story, the Australian versus us, and he might be that horse.
Yep. Major Dan could also have a part to play in a controversial Newcastle Mile. This is him in front. We know Todd McCarthy's ability to be able to do this, and he rated it beautifully. That's Hale Christian getting to the inside. Never went round a horse and got very close to winning, but it was 150.7 the winning time, 130 for Major Dan. That's the story of the race, and he gets automatic entry into... No, it's one story of the race, into the Miracle Mile. The other story was the late scratchings as a result, particular of New Zealand interests, Wrangler and Little Rascal, who are both owned by Ian Dobson. I actually spoke to him on Saturday morning. He was devastated. So the situation was the Craig Cross team got to the racetrack slightly late, maybe 5 minutes. And the stewards, no, you're definitely out. Now, Ian's bugbear wasn't that they have a set of rules and they broke them. There was clearly a reason for it. But how can the owner...
A tree had fallen
across
on
the
the
road,
motorway from Menangle to Newcastle, in case you don't know the story, and the stewards warned them, you need to leave earlier.
So they did.
So they did, but they got there. Now, in Sydney, there's a mandatory cut-off time. If you're not there 90 minutes before a race, which they have a 15-minute leeway for, they actually drove into the track pretty much on the leeway, but by the time they loaded the horses off and got them to the stabling complex, it was too late and they were scratched. So
Pretty harsh.
Something very similar happened to Mark 2 weeks ago with Stylish Memphis at Menangle.
Yeah.
And he thought it was only an hour, which is why he was late. But with the tree incident, Greg, I think there has to be some leeway, surely.
Yeah.
And
well, his bugbear was that the owner has no influence on that. And obviously, maybe it was an act of God that the tree came down. So there was a genuine reason for it, but they just banged point blank. So much so that the All-Stars have a big write-up on their website about the potential around the Inter-Dominion coming up at the end of this year, where they're going to 2 different tracks. They're going to Bathurst and Newcastle. It's a lot of travel anyway in the heat of the summer, and the potential for a road incident like this, whether they would consider even partaking in the Inter-Dominion series. So, yeah, I can understand the concern and the disappointment, clearly, for those who had their horses scratched there on Friday night.
yeah, I don't think what happened last Friday night was correct. I just don't. I think if the stewards were forward-thinking enough to ring them and say there's a tree on the road, they've also got to be forward-thinking enough to give them some leeway around that. So I think that was the wrong decision. With the Inter-Dominions, I respect the trainers' opinions because horses come first, clearly. This isn't the first time there's been an Inter-Dominion where they've bounced it around to a few different tracks. In WA, it happened to Bunbury, of course. In Victoria, recently, when they had the Inter-Dominions there 16 months ago,
Ballarat and...
They went to another couple of tracks as well.
Yep.
So this isn't the first time this has happened. I can understand the concerns from any trainer about travelling in Sydney that time of year, although Victoria can also be hot that time of year. We've also had an Inter-Dominion which started once in Victoria and actually ended in South Australia, which is a long way. So, but the bottom line is it comes down to money. If it was $2 million, everybody would want to go.
Yeah.
It's $500,000 and it's smack bang between the New Zealand Cup Carnival and the Auckland Cup Carnival. So people are going to say, well,
you can't be everywhere.
Exactly. Do I want to go there for that? I'll tell you the truth. We've got a horse who's not that good, but he's good enough to go to an Inter-Dominion called Kratos. And I said to Josh and John, let's go to the Inter-Dominions because some other people aren't going to want to go. And if the All-Stars or anybody else doesn't want to go,
There's an opportunity for you.
Exactly. It gives other people the option to go. Now, the Inter-Dominion should be the best race in Australasia, and therefore everybody should want to go. But at $500,000, it's not the best race in Australasia anymore.
No.
So the travel thing, I'm wishy-washy on. I don't think it's great, but I also think it's important to take racing to the regions, and I'm not sure how you solve that. I'm not a horse trainer, so I don't need to try and solve that. But I do think a lot of it's going to come down to money. And also it's at an icky time for some people. I also think if you held 3 rounds of heats in a final at Menangle, no one would go.
No.
Whereas I think people will go in Bathurst, which is a harness racing town, and Newcastle. I can see both sides of the story.
It's finding the balance.
I don't think anybody's wrong, but I do think the stewards were wrong last week not letting those horses start because of the extenuating circumstances.
Let's get into the 2 automatic qualifying races which are held at Menangle on Saturday night. There's Wrangler. He's come up with barrier 1, so maybe a little bit of luck there for the connections. King of Swing 240, Hunter Cup winner, of course. Chase Auckland, awesome last time. And then Code Bailey is drawn out a little bit wider. I'm Another Masterpiece. I understand Zach Butcher may be driving him. Natalie Rasmussen not going to this meeting, so Zach might pick up the drive there. So top 3 in this?
Top 2.
Top 2?
Top 2 qualify automatically. So 2 spots in the mile are gone. 4 more we guaranteed this week. There's the option for any horse who raced in the Chariots of Fire or any horse in those preludes to also be invited, regardless of where they finish. And if the winning mare in the Ladyship Mile, we're going to show you shortly, goes super, she might get invited. Now, this is a really interesting race because King of Swing, we saw lead and win the Hunter Cup, but there was no pressure. There's a stack of pressure here. Code Bailey, Chase Auckland, AG's White Sox, all like to go forward. And everybody wants to be in the first 2, Gregory, or first 4, because if you're further back in these preludes over a long period of time, you're just curtains. So there'll be pressure, and they will go. And it will be a good, fun Barney.
All right. That's a Group 1, which I always have a little bit of a problem with, these preludes being that. But the next one's a Group 1 as well. So we've got two of them on the same night. The winner of the Miracle Mile 2 years ago, My Field Marshal, he's come up with Barrier 1. You got Colt 31. He's certainly got back into his Australian form, unlike what we saw here for the Inter-Dominion. And Self Assured. Well, he's copped another wide draw here, Michael.
He comes into barrier 8 because there's two inside him who are going to come out. Spoke to Anthony Butt about My Field Marshal. He said, I've got all the options. I'm in play, won well last start. I can lead from barrier 1, happy to be there, or copper sit on the right horse. Now, not many people understand the right horse better than Anthony.
Yes.
He's driving beautifully at the moment. So it's the horse to beat. Self Assured, I wasn't disappointed in last week, but I now know, as you probably do at home, he just can't turn up and do what he wants and win races.
No.
He's not that good yet. He might be. So he's going to be favourite for this race, but from barrier 8, Mark will need to go forward. You can't sit and wait when you've got to run top 2. The one thing I would say is because he was a good second in the Chariots and because he's an Auckland Cup winner, he's the horse most likely, apart from the guaranteed invites, to get into the race. But he still probably needs to run 3rd here, 4th at worst.
Yep. Let's have a look at that Miracle Mile market. So
it's a tricky one because
it is.
Lochinvar Art's in the race, whereas Self Assured's not in the race. Major Dan's got no chance, forget about him. AG's White Sox, I think, will run a wicked mile around Menangle. My Field Marshal can win the race. In fact, I think My Field Marshal's almost the best bet in this market if you're that way inclined. By the way, good to see Mark Shard back. Of course, Mark Shard was scratched out of the Hunter Cup because he had a prickly hoof on the day of the race. He is back. And when you think of I'm another masterpiece, AG's White Sox, Mark Shard, Chase Auckland and Self Assured, with the potential the mares could get in there, this would be the biggest open class team we've had in Sydney for ages.
Yeah, for a very long time. Over there, of course, is Our Princess Tiffany, and off the back of a disappointing Breeders, they did all the checks, sent her over there, she sat park, Michael, and she did this. That's Better's Heart to her outside. Thought she was very brave, but this was win number 18 for Our Princess Tiffany and took her earnings over 800,000.
It's Our Princess Tiffany, the leader. It's Our Princess Tiffany about a neck in front of Better's Heart and Our Princess Tiffany. Our Princess Tiffany goes home to beat Better's Heart Have Time, and just in behind those runners then came...
And Have Time got herself into 3rd as well, so an all-Kiwi trifecta there, but this was the best version of her, Michael, Our Princess Tiffany back.
It was a gutsy call. I would have struggled to take her, to be honest. The way she was so poor the start before, and I don't think anybody really knows what happened there, whether it was a fibrillation or whether she choked out. I don't know what it was. I hear different versions.
Well, officially it was a fibrillation,
yeah,
so
but
yeah.
I spoke to Mark, he thinks she wanted to choke down. I don't know.
Yep.
Doesn't matter now. Really good there. Better's Heart was excellent. And I think Princess Tiffany's actually suited to Menangle racing. I think she's a horse who's suited to not losing her momentum. She just likes to run and run and run, which suits some horses, and that would explain why when she got taken hold of at Anderson Park in another race at Addington the start before and a bit more push and shove. It didn't suit her. Now, she's got a really good barrier draw on Friday night.
Well, Kiwi's a 1, 2, 3.
Saturday night, yeah. Better's Heart's inside her, and Bella Montana's right there. Interesting. We've got a lot of
what will happen here at the start?
We've got a lot of head-to-head races here to talk about, Greg.
Yep.
And people looking at this will think, oh, well, Better's Heart will lead or Bella Montana will take its back or whatever. Better in Force is really quick off the gate, like really quick from barrier 4. That's the horse who ran Bella Montana close at Melton a month ago. So Have Time, by the way, the other Kiwis in the race, Have Time's drawn wide. Our Step Up's an emergency. It'll race in the last race. It's $2.60 and it'll win. Interesting at the start here. Better's Heart leads, if it does, and we know how quick she is off the gate.
Fast off, yeah.
She is. Then Bella Montana can slide straight to her back. Beautiful place to be. But you're not guaranteed that'll happen. Well, the other thing is Better in Force gets off the gate really quick. And then Princess Tiffany's just in that middle bunch there. I suppose Zach Butcher on Bella Montana has two options. If Better's Heart looks like it's going to lead, beautiful, we slide to its back. If it doesn't look like it's going to lead, he just holds Princess Tiffany there at the start and waits to get the 1-1 on her. She's still the horse to beat, but it's a pretty sexy mares race.
Yeah, it definitely is.
What's your view? Princess Tiffany, Bella Montana?
Well, Bella Montana's had the wood over her. She's absolutely beaten her up a couple of times.
Well, it's about
4-2 or something like that.
It's about 7 races for a 5-2 or something pretty significant. So I think Bella Montana's got more ways to win the race than Princess Tiffany has.
Yeah, I still think she's a better chaser
Bellomontana?
Yeah.
Oh, no doubts.
I think so. Anyway, let's move on to the New South Wales Oaks and a dominant performance in the first heat by Stylish Memphis. She's now 5 from 11, but she absolutely towed them up here, Michael, in significantly quicker time than the 2 heats we're about to show you.
Yeah, now the horse who's dropping away on the inside actually led and went super quick, and that carted her into the race. So she was very, very good. She actually had a slight throat infection last week, which they treated but had to stop treating 3 or 4 days before the race because of the rules. So Mark told me he thinks she'll improve this week. Well, if she improves on that, and you'll see the barrier draw shortly, she'll be winning. Still, Dr. Susan has been a revelation in Sydney/Victoria, winning the Victoria Oaks. She also went to the heats last week and she won in a slower time, but Greg relatively similarly easily. But she gets a significantly worse draw this week. But man, she's improved.
Yeah, she's the Victoria Oaks winner and she dominated there. She won't be able to dominate, and more about that when we show you the draw shortly, but you can only win, and she won very comfortably here, and she's doing a magnificent job. She's up over $170,000 now, and yeah, she dominated the second heat. The third heat, Michael, Majida. Now, this was clearly the weakest of the 3 heats. I don't have any doubt about that at all. But she's a very good filly, and she's won now 10 from 12, and she's won a whole lot more money, courtesy of the Breeders' Crown, than the 2 Kiwi fillies.
She's a very nippy horse. She gets off the gate quickly. She's got a little nippy action on her. She's not as good as the Kiwi horses we saw in Victoria Oaks. The Emma Stewart horses tend to catch up by the time they get to Sydney, but I'm not sure they've got the grounding the Kiwis have. I think Stylish Memphis will win, and we'll show you why now. She's got barrier 1, which is an incredibly big bonus. Now, the one thing I would say is 2,400 metres at Menangle, you can get a really wicked roll on from out wide. And I wouldn't be surprised if Anthony Butt launches Dr. Susan. Mark will be a little bit reluctant to launch Stylish Memphis too much because she can get really pulley, and I don't think he'll want to fire her up twice. So it may not just be a lead and win type scenario, but I can't find any reason not to back Stylish Memphis.
No, well, I think if you flip the draws around in Victoria, Stylish Memphis would have won. We concurred, straight after the Oaks. No knock on Dr. Susan, and now they have been reversed. So that's the end of that.
Yeah, I actually think the barrier draw mattered more at Melton, and I think Dr. Susan was really aided. I wouldn't be surprised if someone had a dig early because they think Stylish Memphis might get a bit racy. I just think she'll win. So $1.55 is probably okay. And I spoke to Anthony about Dr. Susan and said, what do you do from out wide? He was being pretty cagey. When Anthony's cagey,
you know he's up to something.
I think he's going to launch. I think he's going to have a crack early doors.
That'll be the last start for the elite racing team as well. News coming out this week that Mark Jones and Brendan Hill, look, they've had a trial. I think it was about 3, might have even been 4 months. The idea behind it, from what I can gather, was that they'd have a little bit more firepower to go to the yearling sales with. Well, they went to the yearling sales, I think they only ended up with 3 horses. So they've decided to go back and retain their individual training licences and train on their own account. No knock on them for having a crack, but it hasn't worked out, so they've amicably agreed not to carry on.
Plenty of people decide to go into business, and good on them for being smart enough to have a trial, and it doesn't quite work out. Your business models don't gel together. Some people have more money coming in, or vice versa, or more staff, or there's a million different reasons things don't work. There's not many satellite stables or dual stable operations that have ever worked, and that's why I take my hat off to Robert and John Dunn. They've been able to do this North and South Island now for a very, very long time. So they're one of the few who have pulled it off. But yeah, mixing stables together brings maybe some strength, but tends to mean there's 2 different philosophies around how to train horses. So good on them for having a crack.
They haven't lost their ability to train either. There's no doubt about that.
They're both good trainers, as simple as that.
Australasian Trotting Grand Prix is in Victoria, so it's a massive weekend of racing. We've got Kiwis there. Temporale has come up with a beautiful barrier draw. A massive Metro, not as good a draw. And of course, Tornado Valley won his 8th Group 1. Now, his performance to win the Night Pistol, he's now 34 wins in his career, up over $700,000, and he had to be the best here, Michael, because he was parked out.
Yeah, there's Massive Metro going for a gallop on the inside. Temporale in the green colours down the outside, really good. But he's just better than these horses most days of the week. And
he's got the gate speed to
probably
lead.
All. Yep. Well, this is basically the same field as the Great Southern Star with exactly the same barrier draws. Tornado Valley's drawn 3. Red Hot 2's drawn 1, and one of the Bernie Hackett, Michelle Wallace horses is drawn to sit on their back. Massive Metro, big one on the second line.
That's probably a good draw for him. I actually don't mind that.
They're actually going to end up in exactly the same places because they were 1, 2, 3 on the markers in the Great Southern Star.
Yep.
They're going to be in exactly the same place. So they should run 1, 2, maybe 3 again. It's impossible to make any case to bet against Tornado Valley.
Waikawaiti Cup was run on Sunday, a 2-day meeting there, of course, and it was run at Oamaru. As we go to it, Michael, you've got a wee man that you want to give a mention from not too far from there, Temuka.
Oh, I agree. A guy called Jack Joyce. Now, Jack's a 14-year-old kid. He loves harness racing. He loves watching trackside. He's a guy who's into the industry. He might even have a sneaky share on a horse he's not allowed to have just yet. But Jack, if you love the harness racing, brother, stick at it. There's lots of good people out there, down your way in particular. So go get yourself into a stable during the school holidays. But Jack, thanks for being a big harness racing fan.
And as we go to a break, let's get Leo O'Reilly home with Shadow Minister over Rock and Roll Max, who, of course, the same scenario happened at Banks Peninsula on the 29th of December. In the home straight, in your box seat, got a text message on Monday night, I think it was, from Gavin Smith, who's had to retire his star trotter. Great things happen, who of course got himself a New Zealand free-for-all, which we're going to have a look at now, and he went into the Dominion as hot favourite. It didn't work out for him, but this was him winning and giving Gavin a huge thrill, and he did a good job, this guy. He's a sort of a slabby type of trotter that he had to work very hard to keep racing sound. He won himself an Ashburton Flying Mile. I think he might have run second to Mark Kohler in one of those as well, or Mombay, one or the other. He was a very good flagship horse for Gavin, and he's just succumbed to a number of little wee issues that he's had. But
well, he had that sort of gait where usually horses who have that gait eventually are going to have an issue, aren't they? But Gavin did a really good job with him, and that's why you enjoy those moments, because at the top level, and we've seen it a lot in recent years, gee, it's hard to keep them up there for a long time.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is, and he did a very good job doing that. Speaking of trotters, young trotters, Hambletonian was held at Ashburton on Saturday. The rain had just started coming down, and this was Cracker Hill. Brad Williamson, he's doing a very good job as a driver and now trainer. He's got a reasonable master, though, and his father to teach him that. And, well, he's won very comfortably here. Michael beat One Magic Kenny, who I thought was very good going around and sitting parked. Midnight Dash was in third. Its stablemate Muscle Mountain galloped just into the first bend. And the horse widest out there, Andover Love, one of Paul Nairn's. He's a lovely big horse. I'm expecting to see plenty from him. But let's concentrate on the horse that was runner-up to Bolt for Brilliance in the Jewels, of course, running similar conditions it was, and he's got a huge future, hasn't he?
Both of them have.
Yep.
Brad's a good young fella, good attention to detail. He handles himself well, he speaks well, he obviously can train. He doesn't have much financial firepower behind him yet, but that'll come. That'll come in time. He'll make he already is a good horseman.
He was at the yearling sales and getting involved, so yeah.
Which is what you got to do.
Yep, and Cracker Hill was excellent.
He's a good horse.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what to make of that race because the gaps were so big. I actually think Bolt for Brilliance might be the best of these trotters. I'm not sure. He races Alexander Park.
Tailored Elegance was
on
in
Friday
there.
night.
She was
poor.
Yeah.
She wasn't.
Nothing.
She was
nothing like her best.
Wrong
form.
hand signals from Gregory. She wasn't. It's hard to, in the wet, when it's that wet, it's hard to know who's copping it and who's not, and who doesn't like the grit in their face and all that sort of stuff. But I don't think it really matters. For that group, he's the best of them at the moment by quite some margin. So, as I said, Bolt for Brilliance against the older horses this week at Alexandra Park. they're pretty good, but you also think there might be a few more things to come out of the woodwork just yet with these trotters.
Yep, time-honoured Sapling Stakes was run the next race and was actually the last race they ran with the mobile. And the hot favourite Krug, we talked about it on the show last week, he might be the most professional at this stage of the season, and he was just a little bit too strong here, Michael.
He's pretty advanced. He had, got beaten off the gate early by the runner-up, who was pretty good.
First class,
he's okay. I think he will improve on this run too. But Krug's going to come north for the final of the Young Guns, and if he draws well, he's the horse to beat. He's very professional. He's well trained. He's bred to be a decent horse. The top two there will probably come north. I think the rest of them will probably stay down south and maybe head to the kindergarten down at Wyndham.
Yeah, Wyndham a couple of weeks
They're starting to divide into two bunches, which they tend to do. Ones who go to the Young Guns, ones who stay south, and then they'll all marry up again through May for the Sire Stakes and the Sales Series. But at the moment, you can make a case him and the horse, the All-Stars horses coming up this week are probably the two best ones with first class, maybe behind them. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's a few more to come out of this crop too. But if they're going to come out, they better hurry.
Yeah.
Because very shortly we're going to be into the qualifying heats, the Sire Stakes heats. In fact, the pacing race this week at Alexandra Park is a Young Guns / Sire Stakes heat, which I didn't know they could do. But it's both.
Yeah, I think they've done that a couple of times.
So
yeah.
I think if they're going to emerge, they better emerge pretty quickly.
I saw one. Trials. Payson Pride, it's called. Look out for it. All Stars last Friday. Go and have a look at it. HRNZ. I think it's a pretty nice horse. It was a really nice trial from him.
Better as the lot?
I think so, yeah.
Who would have thought?
Speaking of 2-year-olds, we saw a beautiful trotter there last Thursday night. It feels like an age ago. Have a look at Regal Attire. I know what you're going to say. He's by Muscle Hill and he's out of Regal Volo, so he's beautifully bred, but look at the action of this horse.
I think he was passed in at the sales. I think Ken and Karen wanted a certain amount of money for him and didn't get that, and they took him home. And they've had a few passings last week, and good on them. Heaps of people say all the time, why would you pass your horse? Why don't you sell them all? Well, you get a bit of value on them, and clearly he's worth a stack of money. So he looks a very natural 2-year-old.
Yeah, he certainly does. Town Echo made her much anticipated race debut. She won at the trials by, as you would say, a cricket pitch, and she won this very comfortably. Matt Anderson, big offers come in for this horse. They've been turned down. This horse has got a big motor.
Talk about Ken Brecken and Matt Anderson in the same kind of sentences there. He said, this is one of the guys I've sent a horse to, one of these young trainers. They're hungry, they want to train for you. So they've sent horses to them. And I'm a big advocate for people who take horses home from the sales, going to one of these young trainers, Matt Anderson, Kyle Marshall, Brad Williamson, whoever, and saying, hey, look after this thing here, we'll do a deal on it. I think it makes sense for everybody involved because the All-Stars probably don't want those type of horses. That's not sexy for them. Ironically, they ended up with one of Ken's. But for those young trainers, they will work their arse off for that. Arna Donnelly's another one. So there's plenty of them out there.
Yep, there certainly is. There's so much going on in the sport at the moment. Almost missed this, but I was speaking to Kerry Hobbs last night about the Taranaki Trotting Club. And of course, it's their 100-year celebration. And Kerry and the team there have put together a pretty good weekend of entertainment down that way. We're talking from Auckland, of course, and 100-year history. It shouldn't be scoffed at, and they've marked it, the bookmakers and TAB, by paying back 4 places for the Cup there on Saturday.
So it's on Saturday?
Yeah.
Okay, so it'll be on trackside too?
That's right, yep. Okay. So 100-year celebration, so congratulations to them. They put a lot of work in behind it too. I know Andre Neil's been out shooting a whole story around. He actually told me a couple of cracking yarns. One was about one day they turned over nearly 290,000 on course, and there was one of those jackpots, pick 6 jackpot, and they were waiting for the plane to come down from Radio Pacific because they had $45,000 to spend on the jackpot, and it was late. So the plane was circling and they held the race up, and long story short, anyway, they got the turnover. He also did the drives. He said this club was struggling. He thought, I'll get Tony Hurley down here. That'll attract some betting. So he got Tony down. He did all his drives for him, Kerry, and he said he fell out 3 times. I think he ended up with 4 or 5 drives and spent more time on the track than he did in the kart. So, nice work, Kerry. I don't know if that's your go in life.
Well, also, it's important because these tracks are endangered.
Yep.
Some of these tracks, some of these clubs are endangered, and it's not till you lose them that you realise what you've lost. I come from Greymouth, obviously, in Victoria Park. I loved the place. The most exciting day of the year. Forget Christmas, that's for amateurs. When the lights went on at Victoria Park, I was in heaven. And they closed it. and it never gets back. And now with my nephews who are a lot younger than me, they're teenage kids or younger, when they think of horses, they only think of galloping. Once you lose harness racing from a community,
it's gone.
It's gone. People don't think about it as part of their daily life, and that's what's important, the work that Kerry and these guys do down there and the volunteers to keep these clubs going, because people who don't grow up in towns without harness racing are very really going to fall in love with it later on.
Let's have a look at what's ahead for you on your harness racing week domestically. So Stratford, they race Thursday into, of course, Taranaki's celebration of 100 years. So 9 races there, and they've got the Stratford Cup and $20,000 pick 6 first there. Will be well anticipated of the 2 days, I'm sure. Here's Alexandra Park's Group 1 action, $125,000 pass goes to Jewelers Northern Oaks, and all of those other features, a couple of Young Guns heats, and that $100,000 into the pick 6. We'll have the Big Fish come up with a suggested way for you to play into that, and of course it is on Freeview if you've got some friends without Sky. Addington Raceway will complement that, including the listed Hara de Trotteurs Sire Stakes Classique, and it goes at $6.56, the first there. Just before 5:30, there is the information around Saturday's meeting, $12,000 Taranaki Cup, with that paying 4 places on the fixed odds bets only, and the Taranaki Breeders there with Woodland Stud for $10,000. Addington on Sunday, it's actually the Leonard Memorial, $30,000 there at Group 3 level. They've got the Cheviot Cup, which has got a decent field as always, and a $10,000 bonus quaddie too, so plenty of reasons to bet there. And Invercargill's on too, and it's their Autumn Cup, the Northern Tavern, got a couple in there on the odd occasion. $15,000, $4.29 the start time for the feature there. And next Wednesday, Cambridge, 5:26 will be the start of an 8-race program there. Now, bets of the week. We've gone back to the well.
Before we get to bets of the week, some sad news for some of our male viewers.
Yes, Michael.
On Saturday, the lovely Cassie Fahey gets married to somebody else.
Right.
So there'll be guys out there watching who are fans of Cassie's, but boys, the game's over. Cassie is marrying her wonderful partner Adam. Yep. She marries him on Saturday over there in Sydney. Cassie,
so good luck
from all of us here from Trackside, enjoy the day. It's terrifying, but it's great fun as well. And thanks for all the great work you're doing for harness racing. So pretty special day for her and the family. The Faheys obviously big harness racing people, so I hope they all enjoy what's going to be a wonderful weekend.
What about a bet of the week for you?
I like one.
Yes.
In the first race at Alexandra Park, I think South Beach Arden, who had no luck last week in that Guineas.
South Coast Arden.
South something Arden.
That's it.
I think it'll lead and potentially win, and I don't really care what it's called.
And I know Pretty Majestic's flip of the coin odds, but I just can't go past her, Michael. She was so good at Cambridge last time. I'm happy to be on her. Woodland's winner from last week, well, he was heavily backed, and actually Matthew Cross asked me before this race, would I take this about Mr. Fahrenheit? And I said, well, he can win, but I don't know that I would. And he did win. He beat Doff Your Cap, Leone Jones providing the Quinella there. He's pretty smart. He's out of the Tussle family, so should be able to trot a wee bit, and I think that was about his 6th or 7th win, so pretty smart sort of a horse,
My
Mr.
question
Fahrenheit.
for the week for you.
Yes, Michael.
Can Self Assured turn this around? He's been beaten 3 of the last 4 starts in Australia and win the Miracle Mile in around about 10 days' time.
Yes.
He can?
He can turn it around. Team Teal, $25,000 they're up to, Michael, so we're well past the halfway stage now, so for ovarian cancer they're doing a wonderful job there. Right. Alexandra Park for us Friday night. We'll get as much information, particularly around that $100,000 pick 6, Michael.
Just one thing I would say about Taranaki too, it is a wonderful achievement for 100 years, and I know if you're watching this and you're a Gallops fan who's watching, you're thinking, oh, you know, it's a big day, Derby Day at Ellerslie, and I want to see Catalyst, and that's all really cool. Go to the races and watch it. There's nowhere better to watch racing than go to the race. Go to the races at Taranaki, sit there, have a couple of jars if you're that way inclined, or a cup of tea, and watch that great action along with the fantastic action coming up from there. So I reckon it could be a really special way to enjoy not only what they've achieved, but a big day of racing coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. That's been your box seat. We'll see you in 7 days' time. We will wrap all of that up and, of course, preview Derby night at Alexandra Park. We'll see you in a week.